Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. Hope you all enjoyed the Nick Humphrey interview. I believe that you all did. Thank you so much for your comments and discussion. I am just going to read a couple articles today that I think will... well, they're pertinent to the state of the climate. I'm having one of those days where I'm feeling a little, maybe feeling a little overwhelmed. And, you know, I vacillate back and forth between just being in normalcy and like doing things and maybe not even thinking about climate change for a few hours. But then just over the last couple of days, it's just felt a little bit heavy. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So I'm going to read this article by William Rivers Pitt from Truthout, titled "Springtime in the New Normal of Climate Disruption." And this is from May 18th, 2019, a couple days ago. As I write this, there is a large flaming orb in the sky. Either I am running a fever or it is emitting heat. All the newly bloomed plants and leaves are reaching for it as if it provides some sort of sustenance. If I look at it, my eyes water and burn, and I see spots after I avert my gaze. I will stop looking at it, but I am afraid. Perhaps it is angry. Have I displeased it somehow? Oh, wait, right, it's the sun. I had forgotten all about it. Even as I complete the sentence, it is gone again. I may have only dreamed it. The soft whisper of rain has resumed, a seemingly ceaseless soundtrack for this sodden spring. It is raining actually currently right now in Los Angeles. It rained during 21 of April's 30 days here in southwest New Hampshire, and it has rained during all but 2 days so far this May. Neither number accounts for cloudy days without rain, which has been the standard state of affairs for both this month and the last. The flowers and trees love it, even despite the cold, raw air that will not relent. My little corner of the world is all green and gray and appears ready to stay that way until October. Last Sunday, the Boston Globe ran an article about all the normal citywide springtime activities that have been upended by this diluvial season. Little League games, carousel rides on the Greenway down by the harbor, street festivals, outdoor movie showings, and even the Duckling Day parade for kids at the public garden has been postponed, canceled, or just plain soaked into frustrated oblivion. It isn't like this everywhere, of course. Seattle is experiencing an uncommonly long run of abnormally hot and sunny days, offsetting the historic 71 inches of precipitation the region absorbed in this last year. Neither situation is normal, and the twin phenomena are now crashing into one another. Last winter's record snowfall is now melting in the mountains at an accelerated rate from the heat, raising fears of flooding and a potential summer drought. Across the Midwest this spring, reports the New York Times, floods have submerged farms and stores, split open levees, and in some places left people stranded for days or weeks. This record flooding is causing problems for more than just farmers and residents. The seemingly relentless rise of the waters is threatening even the Keystone XL pipeline, where it runs through Nebraska. Strange, I could have sworn someone told me the thing was perfectly safe. The past year, in fact, was the wettest one on record nationwide, reads the Globe article. The persistent rain is not a fluke, but instead a human-caused catastrophe related to climate change. When the usually docile weather reporters start talking like that, you know it's really for real. Mind you, I'm not trying to pull a reverse Inhofe by claiming that lots of rain proves climate disruption is here. It is, but it's a far subtler piece of business than throwing a snowball in the Senate. Over the past decade, reports the Union of Concerned Scientists, researchers have found strong evidence showing that climate change increases the frequency and intensity of events like extreme heat and extreme rainfall from hurricanes. Put another way, climate disruption does not make weather events from scratch, at least for the present. It causes pre-existing weather events to happen more often and with greater strength. We are witnessing this every day. There is more water in the atmosphere now, and it is making its presence felt. Well, one of the ways that climate change has created weather from scratch is that we had a hurricane, basically a hurricane over land last month in the middle of the country, the United States, that is. That that doesn't really happen. That's a totally new thing. The overwhelming fact of climate disruption has been so obvious in the minds of most people, including a whole slew of Republican voters. The only people remaining who vocally deny its existence are either locked into an outdated partisan trope or are worried about losing money if the petroleum industry gets mothballed. Back in March, I had the privilege of introducing Truthout's Dar Jamail at a lecture he gave for the Lannan Foundation in Santa Fe. Jamail had the unenviable task of explaining to the assemblage that climate disruption is already happening, has already happened, and at this point there is nothing any of us can do to avert it. We can labor to mitigate the damage to come, and we must, but the notion that we can completely dodge that which has already arrived is farce. This is not welcome news, even for those who already believe the disruption is real and have for years now. Jamail did not come empty-handed that night, however, though his remedy was the very definition of cold comfort. Climate disruption is here, which means we have already failed. We must grieve, he counseled, before we can act. We must redefine hope within ourselves so that action is taken regardless of the outcome. But it is the action itself that possesses the only merit left to us. More importantly, Jamail told us to be fully present in nature right here and now, because we can still do that much at least. Absorb all that has been taken for granted. See it with new eyes made stern, with hard wisdom. If you try to see it all for the first time, your eyes and your mind will not fail you. Recall the words of naturalist Rachel Carson, who asked, "What if I had never seen this before? What if I knew I would never see it again?" Yeah, it's raining. Maybe it will never stop. The trees are devouring it. In my life, I have never seen it so green here, so lush, like you could run your hand across the grass and have your palm painted with life itself. I see tiny white flowers nestled between the tufts. The soil smells like love. And even the diminished birdsong is symphonic in my newly trained ears. I can see Mount Monadnock out my window looking like a gloomed emerald in the distance, altogether strange and glorious beneath the clouds. Find the beauty within this new normal while you can, because it is still all around us. Be fully present, obeisant to awe. Grieve in your wonder, and then act. The earth will tell you what to do. It has been telling us for a long time. And I'm going to finish up this video with a brand new Way Past What the Fuck entry from Michael Campy. This is from Wednesday, May 15th, and it's titled, "What About My Things?" There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. All these places have their moments. With lovers and friends, I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life, I've loved them all. That's a quote from the Beatles, In My Life. There is a sadness and innocence, especially when that innocence is embodied in one you love. I have put off writing this entry for about a month now, because every time I started it, I would burst out crying. Even now, it is hard to see through the mist of tears. When she was about 5 years old, I thought that I should tell my daughter about bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or mad cow disease. The information reduced her to tears. She looked up at me and said, "Does that mean that everyone who eats cows are going to die? Are all my friends going to die?" It was one of the saddest things I ever saw. She was so scared, and I felt like a shit for having told her. It took a long time for her to recover from that. I am now faced with a similar situation. My daughter is 27 years old, and she is graduating this year with her master's degree in international law with a concentration in environmental issues. She attended the COP conference in Poland last year. She had some pretty doom and gloom professors during her undergraduate studies in environmental studies, so she is most likely aware of the issues we face. She is still planning for a future. I believe she needs to know how grave and near-term are the threats we are confronted with, but I am hesitant to tell her. I think about the life she has built for herself and the things she has surrounded herself with, things that represent fond memories, pictures of her trips abroad, and keepsakes that she has collected. I can see her face when I think about having to say, when things start going sideways, gather some clothes and get up here as quick as you can. We need to get out of town. I can imagine her disbelief, her shock, and I can imagine her saying, but what about my things? I believe we spend a great deal of time investing our possessions with an almost lifelike aura. The collections have meaning that go beyond just the value of the items themselves. They represent cherished moments, memories, and people and experiences that add up to the entirety of who we are and have become. Almost everyone is surrounded by keepsakes, the objects that we don't want to lose or get rid of. Some people have boxes of them that can be easily grabbed in the event of an emergency. When you see people who have had their possessions destroyed, it appears they miss the keepsakes more than anything else. Little things that remind them of people and places. I have them around me, the small box that contains the ashes of our dog, books that belong to my mother, pictures that my daughter drew for me when she was little. I even kept for a long time a one-eyed stuffed rabbit that had been my first friend. I still don't have many real walk-around friends. Perhaps I should have kept the rabbit. All these things are going to be very hard to abandon. A friend of mine who lived in Oakland, California, when a big fire raced across the hills, left for work in the morning, and by noon of that day, her house and all of her possessions were gone. She was left with only the clothes on her back. She said it didn't really take as long as she thought it would to get over the loss. It was just a matter of accepting that what had happened and moving on, but you could see in her eyes that moving forward was a lot harder than she let on. The moving on part would be hard for me, as I am a sentimental sort, and the loss of certain items would affect me almost as much as the loss of a fellow creature. The time is coming when I'm going to have a conversation with my daughter. We don't get along all that well, which will make it that much harder. She may not believe that the time is short. She may respond as my wife has by saying that it is not that bad, or that we don't know, but we don't have to worry. I have no idea what I will do if she doesn't believe we are in trouble. Will I try to convince her? Will I present evidence to attempt to sway her? What if she can't be convinced? Would I then just tell her that I love her and leave? There does not appear to be an easy path. The only way I will ever know how she is going to respond is to have the conversation. I do not look forward to either her either believing or not believing. I do not want to destroy her innocence. I do not want to tell her that the plans she has made are not going to be realized, and I do not want her to have another reason to drift farther away from me. I do not want to. And this is the conversation that I resist having myself with certain people in my life, and also with my own children. It's a difficult thing to talk about, and obviously one that causes a lot of people not a small amount of grief, not a small amount of hesitance, not a small amount of resistance. As I sit here, I have a few people that are close to me, and I have a few friends that understand what's going on. Very, very few people I can talk to about this with. Very few, like I can count them on one hand, and I haven't used all my fingers. And I wonder also why, nobody wants to date me, and I often think, I'm wondering what's going on, and I think, well, maybe it's because I'm talking about this, or maybe it's written all over my face. Maybe it's just projecting out of my eyeballs 1,000 miles an hour that that I'm living just for today, and that's really all that matters. And all the future plans are getting hazy and more dreamlike every day. But that's what it is to be alive and be burdened with the actual knowledge of where we are at in our in our history and where we are at in the process of the sixth mass extinction. I want us to have a lot more time. I hope that we have a lot more time. I am very, very aware of the reality that we have very, very limited time. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.